Hello, amigas, and welcome to Amiga Handle Your Shit podcast. I am so excited to have a good friend of mine. I've known him now for a couple of years. Actually, he is one of my brother's best friend, and his name is Rudy Lopez, and he is the CEO of SoCal Industries. SoCal Industries services commercial, industrial, and residential venues. SoCal is equipped and experienced in servicing special events, construction sites, and emergency relief efforts. Their same-day and weekend delivery service makes them unique and willing to serve your immediate needs. Their vision is embraced with principle of clean quality service. These core values form the foundation of their company. It is their goal that each customer receives an effective solution to their temporary site service needs. The fact remains that they are recognized and awarded for timely service, product collection, and sanitary equipment. They are the best. They're the best in terms of sanitary equipment, and I'm so excited that he's here to tell us all about it and how he even started this business. So without further ado, this is Rudy Lopez. Hello, amigas, and welcome to Amiga Handle Your Shit podcast. I'm so excited to have a wonderful friend of mine. He is a family friend, actually. His name is Rudy Lopez, and he is the CEO of SoCal Industries. And amiga, SoCal Industries is like the biggest nationwide, practically, right? In porta potties and sanitary, everything that you need in order to have an effective party, event, or company. Because guess what? Part of life is, well, you know it. You know, the name of this podcast is Amiga Handle Your Shit. So you gotta handle it that way too, right? So we get to handle it. So I'm excited to have Rudy here with me and to share his wisdom on starting companies and what has brought so much success in his life. And of course, as you know, amigas, I always want you to know more about our guest because many of you probably haven't heard about him. And so obviously we're going to know more about his background and how he got involved with SoCal Industries and how everything started. So welcome. Welcome, welcome, Rudy, to Amiga Handle Your Shit podcast.
What an honor! What an honor! It's fun to be here with you, looking at you on the screen there. And I've always wondered when you were going to ask me to do something like this. I wanted to tell you because I know even your dad.
Yes.
They were interviewed by you before, right? And I'm like,
yes.
It's a matter of time before maybe I get asked. So here I am.
Well, yeah. You know what? I'm so excited that you were able to be here today, and you said yes, because I was like, I mean, come on. He handles, shit. So literally, literally and figuratively.
I do handle shit. I do all the time. I mean, literally, figuratively. I mean, from the actual shit talking that occurs to the actual shit removal from the restrooms. Absolutely. Yeah.
Oh my God, that is so funny. I mean, this episode is going to be so much fun. Okay, so Rudy, I know you and I have had multiple conversations and about how you started SoCal Industries. But for those out there who are not aware about SoCal Industries, okay, I always feel that, the person behind the company is far more important. And the reason I say this is because it is your acumen, your willingness to take that leap of faith and to start a business that has become so successful. Now, but that also leads me to your background, like where are you from? And more importantly, because this episode is going to be released during National Hispanic Month, it's so important to talk about that background so that amigas out there can have the inspiration that to know that, hey, this is a concept, a company that is necessary and how you turn it into the success. So, Rudy, can you tell us where you're from? Tell us your familial background.
Yeah. I was born in Los Angeles, California, but quickly moved to the city of El Monte,
Mm.
which I'm in Whittier right now, so it's only about a 10-minute drive from here. My parents actually still live in El Monte, but a lot of my family kind of went from LA to Whittier or El Monte, surrounding cities and things like that. So I was born here in the US, but my parents both immigrated from different parts of Latin America. My father's from Jalisco, Mexico, so that's where he was born and immigrated here when he was about 15, 16 years old. And my mother, she's from El Salvador, and she immigrated more or less around that same time. And they both kind of came here. My dad went quickly to work. My mom went to school, and they met one day. And I'm the oldest of three kids. So grew up in El Monte, went to elementary school there, didn't know a word of English when I started there. And all of a sudden, at the age of 5, I was thrust into a neighborhood that predominantly spoke English, although a good majority of the people living there were Hispanic or Latinos. And so I think within weeks or months, I learned English and kind of got the ball rolling from there. My parents, albeit they immigrated into this country, they always felt like there was an opportunity for them as long as they worked very hard. And I know that you can relate to that with your family, and I'm sure a lot of people out there that are listening to this podcast probably know that our parents might even have very similar backgrounds. But so I learned early on that the way to get ahead in life was really to work as hard as you could. And I saw my parents work 6, 7 days a week, 12, 15 hours a day from sun up to sundown, and that's kind of all I observed early on. My dad was an entrepreneur. He was the kind of guy that always wanted to work somewhere just long enough to learn how things were done or what the tricks of the trade were, and then he would go out and do it himself. He always had a self-confidence, and thank God he's still with us. He's still alive. So is my mother. But from installing grass or sod for a landscaping company, he did it just long enough to know where they bought the sod, where they bought the fertilizer, what equipment you needed, and then he would go off and do it on his own. Same thing with restaurant work. He did some work working for a couple different restaurants as a dishwasher, as a cook, and then learned just enough about the recipe to then kind of want to do it on his own. So my dad had a big influence in me because just by nature of how he was an entrepreneur. My mother kind of went into, she studied and she got a nursing degree, working at hospitals pretty much my entire upbringing. And at one point, my dad got hired at a portable toilet company. He was one of the first drivers for a very large national company that still exists to this day. He was, I think, the second driver that they ever had as a pump driver. So the guy that delivers the porta potty to a construction site or to an event, and then he would go out there and clean them regularly on some sort of a schedule. And again, learned enough to say, okay, I think I know how to do this on my own. And lo and behold, by then I was around 16, 17 years old, and I was the only son. I have 2 younger sisters, and at the time, it was like, hey, come with me. I gotta show you how to do this. So I need your help. And he'd give me I'd work on a weekend. He'd give me $10, $20, and I was slowly learning this industry. And albeit I went to high school, graduated, I went to college. Kind of had my ups and downs in college. I started off with all the right intentions and then realized that I was easily distracted by other things.
Like it's not for you.
Yeah, it wasn't so easy. I was just very distracted by everything else that was going around me, and I kind of lost focus for a while. But eventually, I graduated. I went to Cal State LA, and I got my my bachelor's degree in psychology. And then I thought, okay, great, here I go. Let me go ahead and start getting into the working world. Even though my dad thought, well, aren't you going to work with me? I'm like, no, Dad, I went to college. I'm going to wear a tie to work every day. I'm going to drive my car, and I'm not going to work like you, is what I kind of told myself. As tough as that may have sounded for my dad to kind of take, because I was the only son, the oldest son. But I kind of told him, hey, Dad, that's it. I want to go out and do my thing. So I worked for the Screen Actors Guild for many years. I was a research consultant for them. I had other jobs here and there that kind of taught me a lot of things about customer service. I worked in pharmacy for many years as a pharmacy technician, did all these different things, but finally landed the job that I thought I wanted, which was at the Screen Actors Guild. And about 3-4 years into working there, I just realized that I didn't enjoy working for people. There was this feeling like I had to kiss someone's ass all the time, or I had to be in the right group of people, because if you weren't doing this with them, you didn't get all the opportunities that other people got. And I just felt like this is a lot of politics in the working world, in the quote unquote white collar world, right?
Yeah.
And I just didn't buy into stuff like that. I didn't like the feeling that I got when I wasn't allowed into a particular meeting because I wasn't talking to the right people or whatever. And those politics kind of just kind of wore me out. And so I decided to go with my dad and said, his company at the time was very small. We only had about 3-4 employees. We primarily worked with the sector that was parties and special events, backyard parties and quinceañeras and birthdays and weddings and things like that. And so, as a young guy, I said, hey, what do you think if we started going into construction, or we bought these porta potties over here that might appeal to a different group of people, right? More upscale.
Yeah.
But it was always my mom and dad's business. It wasn't mine.
Oh, okay.
So I ran into we clashed. I had the young new ideas of growing, and he had the mom and pop ideas of, hey, this is really stable. We're all making a decent living here. Why rock the boat?
Right.
Because rocking the boat meant you had to start dealing with municipalities, inspectors, entities, insurances, and everything else that makes you this big legitimate company, right?
Yeah.
So kind of went back and forth a little bit, and I hope I'm not jumping ahead too much, but I'm trying to. We can always backtrack and ask questions about things. But I left for a while. I said, you know what, Dad, sorry, we're
you and I don't work. Or you're like, we're not at the meeting of the minds. We gotta.
No. Yeah. It was even as harsh as saying, hey, Rudy, this isn't your money. It's our money. I'm like, oh, yeah, if you put it that way, you're absolutely right. So kind of strayed away from it a little bit. And then I noticed that my dad was starting to have some issues now, because he was running into more of the inspections and the insurances and the DOT inspections when it comes to trucks and how they're able to be operated on our highways and things like that. And I at that time, I was talking to a really good friend of mine, who's still to this day one of my best friends. And I explained to him that I was interested in the possibility of buying my parents' company out. I knew all the ins and outs, the operations. I know where to get all the supplies. I have definitely the energy and motivation to do it. I just need, we got to figure out where I'm going to get money to buy my parents' company at. And so this person kind of was, he helped me out, and later became my business partner, by the way, because he saw what we were doing here, and he's like, you know what, I'll do it. I'll go in there with you. All the while he had a successful career. He was making well into the six figures, like well into that. He was willing to go ahead and put that aside, and he and I grow this company. So we bought my parents' company out back in 2005. So that, I don't know, maybe 19 years ago, I think we're approaching.
Right.
And and I remember telling my mom and dad this specifically. And this was maybe not the best idea, but at the time I felt very, I think it turned out to be a really good idea. But I ended up telling my parents, Mom, Dad, I want you to sell me this company like if I was some guy that walked off the street. and wanted to buy it from you. I'm not your son. I'm not a relative. I'm not anybody you know, because I never want for you. I never want to feel like you gave me a handout
Mm-hmm.
or you did
Yeah.
something for me, and well, that's the reason why he became this or that or did it, because we helped him. I wanted to legitimately do it on my own, and
Right.
so we bought it for whatever undisclosed amount that might be, and then from there we just hit the ground running, because now it was mine.
Yeah.
I owned it, and it was my, for me to either destroy it, the dream, or
Yeah.
make it a real.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So at this juncture, your dad has nothing to do with the company. What did he end up doing? Because I know he was one of those guys that would do something, then leave, do another thing, and then leave. So was
Yeah.
there a second chapter to him?
So at that, yes, the second chapter was that he, you know, was busy for the next 3, 4 years. Part of that money went to building a home, a retirement home in Mexico.
Ah,
So he was busy with that. But he wasn't quick to just say, "Okay, adios. I'm wiping my hands clean. I'll see you later." No, he still stuck around.
okay.
He was still there, and he still helped us when we needed him, because we were short on manpower a lot of the times.
Mm,
But he was on salary at that point. It wasn't like he did it, for free. I said, "Hey, we're going to pay you," and you know, uh, so on and so forth. And that's kind of what we did. And to this day, he'll still once in a great while jump in a truck and go do something, but he does it more because he wants to stay busy. You
yeah.
hear that, right?
Right,
You hear
right,
that
right.
if you're at home and you're not doing anything, what ends up happening? Your health starts to fail. Your brain isn't as acute as it once was when you were in the mix. So he
Right.
still helps out here and there, and that's kind of neat. And 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 he's not involved in any of the decisions anymore. We had to hash that out early on,
Hmm.
because he saw what I was doing, and it was different than what he did, and
Right.
he was scared that something was going to go wrong, and I just went at it like fearlessly. I went
Yeah.
at it,
Yeah.
and then it just all kind of worked out. And then it took a few years, but you get that validation from your parents of like, hey, man, I didn't know you were going to do it this way, or I didn't think it was going to work out, and look at you now. Things have worked out really well, and
Yeah.
but it was without a lot of hard work. Not
Right.
I think it was a combination of extreme hard work, 7 days a week, 16 hours, sometimes 24 hours, sleeping on the floor of my trailer or in the truck, taking a quick little nap before I'd have to go back to work. There was a lot of luck. Certain things just fell into place at the right time. And as that was happening, we were picking up new contracts and jobs that we didn't even know were going to be there when we started the company. Some of it
Wow.
has to do with the economy's rise and decline, and when we kind of got in, and things were the economy in 2009 was taking a hit. And
Right.
so the big companies that do what we do, that install, fencing as well, because we do a lot of fence installation and portable restrooms, they were the big fish, and they were just losing contracts because their customers weren't picking up the work. And
Right.
so they were letting people go. And we were picking up the drivers that they were laying off. And so
Ah.
we were amassing a workforce or a team we were handpicking the guys that we wanted, and we created this really strong company or foundation really early on.
Wow, this is incredible. And it always makes me think like, okay, it's always like the breakdowns go to your breakthroughs, right? Like all the challenges. And so I wanted you to touch upon one of the biggest challenges that you have in your company, because I know from speaking so many times with my family, it's drivers. Like we don't have enough workers,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
eligible workers, that is,
Hmm.
because it requires a certain person that they may need a license,
Yeah.
maybe immigration status. You
Hmm.
can't just hire someone off the street. So
Right.
tell us, has that been a challenge for you in your company?
I think that. that is probably the biggest challenge right now, is finding employees that are eligible, that can work, that have the commercial driver's licenses that are required to drive, these vehicles that are on the road. Um, and I don't know. You're absolutely right. There was a time, without knowing too much about how it worked, there was a time when there were a lot of people working here that immigrated from, you know, Mexico or Central America or for that matter, and they had driver's licenses, and they were legit driver's licenses because they were able to get them early on when they came to the country.
Right.
And then now it's so different, right? People are here, but they don't have a legal status.
Right.
Therefore, they cannot drive vehicles that are required for this type of work that we do. So
Right.
we're relegated to people that do have licenses but don't want to do this kind of work,
Yeah.
right? Because
Yes.
it's quote unquote dirty or too hard of work, too
Yeah.
physical.
Yeah.
It's not glamorous by any stretch of the imagination. It's really hard work, long hours. That there are regulations now in this state specifically that don't allow employers like myself to work people past a certain amount of time, and that is great because what it does do is it keeps your people healthy,
Hmm.
not only physically healthy but just mentally healthy, good with their families. Who wants to not see their spouse for for 16 to 18 hours? It's like you want a family to be intact. Most of my employees have children, they have spouses, and so these things have all been good things, but the pool of employees has shrunken. And I know, going back to what you said, when I spoken with your brother, with your dad, with both your brothers, they kind of we talk about the same stuff. As that's a big challenge.
It
And then
is.
just in general, doing business in California has been more difficult because of a lot of the legal battles that you have with employees, whether with injuries and there's a lot of wage and hour stuff that we have to comply with. And even if you comply, it seems like you have to really walk people through, like babysit adults through the process so that everything is filed and everything is on record and all of that type of stuff. But it's all been for the better, because at the end of the day, you want people to get home and be safe. You want people to be sane and not overworked, because when you do that, you forget about the little things, which is safety, and you can injure yourself. So there's good
Absolutely.
and bad to it all.
There's good and bad and all the things, right? And speaking about California and just businesses, I see all these businesses leaving California.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I don't blame them. I mean, number one, the taxes. I mean, let's not go,
Yeah,
but like the
yeah.
workers' comp, it's
Hmm.
a huge burden. Yes, it's necessary, but I think it's almost like, at what point is it egregious? The
Right.
fines, the fees, all the things. And it's like, oh my God, it's almost like we want California. We love California because of the weather and it's nice and all those things, but we're not loving California for the business sake.
Right.
Are
Right.
you, do you ever have ideas of maybe not moving your establishment, but perhaps next will be in a different state, like a next, hub for you?
You know, I know of certain companies that are in my industry as well as related industries that have moved at least a portion of their operations to other states. One very popular state right now is Texas, for instance. There's a lot of infrastructure being built there because a lot of people are moving literally from California. That seems to be a very popular state right now. So when you're building houses, that you're building infrastructure, right?
Mhm.
Restaurants, hotels, parks, corporate buildings, warehouses, all of that, and that's a dream for somebody that does what I do. If I was willing to make that next leap, um, but number one, the company is called SoCal Industries, right? So SoCal, Southern California. So I thought, okay, well, what do you do in Texas? Do you call yourself SoCal in Texas, even though, it's the name is more associated with California? That's one thing I've thought about.
Yeah.
But the honest truth is I love what we do here in California.
Yeah.
We handle everything from Santa Barbara,
Yeah.
Ventura County, all the way down to the San Diego border.
Yeah.
And then as far as, the desert, Palm Springs and Indio. And there's a lot of work happening here because it's not just construction. There's events going on everywhere, all over Orange County, Los Angeles. We do a lot of concerts. We do a lot of 5K runs and 10K runs and marathons that are longer than that, bike rides. So there's a lot in this, just in LA, Orange County, Riverside, San Bernardino County alone to keep us pretty busy. And our salespeople have been with us for quite some time, so they've built relationships with event planners and general contractors and superintendents where they get repeat work.
Yeah.
And so we're okay where we are. You always have to keep growing,
Right.
or have the mentality that you're growing just to stay the same. Because if you just say, well, we hit our numbers, we're doing great, let's keep it, let's have another year like this and we'll be good. But you don't understand that 10% of those people you work with may be relocating. They may unfortunately have business issues or problems where they're not working anymore the following year. So you're always growing just to cover the ones that are kind of leaving,
Right. Yeah.
But I think that right now this is great. It would also, Jackie, just to be very candid with you, I've hit a point where I put a lot of time into my business. We have now great managers, operations managers. We have general managers, HR directors, sales managers, so on and so forth, where I feel like if I wanted to grow it more, it probably would require me to get really back into it again. And,
And
you know,
no,
I'm,
we're not going to go back to sleeping in
now,
cars.
yeah, cars and traveling again and
Yeah.
doing all that stuff. Right now, my kids are at an age where I'm really enjoying being around them, and they range from 11 years old to 16 years old, and I'm around them a lot. I'm working, like right now, I'm working from my home office. I could do a lot from home, but certain time rolls along and somebody needs to go to practice or to an appointment. It really gives me a lot of pleasure to be able to be a part of their lives more, because I will tell you, early on I wasn't around a lot. I was working a lot, and I didn't get to enjoy all the really beautiful things about having a family. So
Right.
yeah.
Well, at least, that your company allows you to have that flexibility, which is incredible because oftentimes, when your company is growing, that means less time for family.
Yeah.
Whereas for you, you've been able to make the company work your life balance situation, right? And instead of the opposite, right? So,
Yes.
I feel like that is the objective. That is like that's where you want to be. Like establish your business at a certain level where you have all this freedom to do what you love to do, play golf, be with your family, and that's amazing. And so I'd love to ask you for in your opinion, given that you've done all this work, what have you attributed your success? Is it the hard work or is it more than that?
Uh, I have to say, going back to what I had said earlier, definitely working really hard early on.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, to the point, Jackie, where there were times where I would kind of just yell at the sky and say why, like why me, like because there was so much on my plate and the level of stress was so high because I felt like maybe I overcommitted.
Mm.
Uh, and there were other times where the equipment itself that I was using to deliver or to clean or maintain decided to not work at a very important moment that I needed it the most, and I would just yell. And
Oh, yes.
but I always I'm going to bring a little bit of religion in here because
Please.
I always pray to God every day, even if it's 2 minutes or 10 minutes or whatever it is. I've always really just had a lot of faith in God since I was a little kid. My mom instilled me praying, um, and I felt like a lot of it is just having faith in a higher power, an energy. I'm
Yeah.
not per se this or that or the other. I'm just saying something outside of yourself, that an energy, a positivity,
Yeah.
do good for others. Good tends to circle back in for either yourself or those people that are around you that need the help. So I think a lot of it was just good karma, good energy. Um, and finally, I would have to say the last bit was some risk taking. I
Yeah.
put a lot on the line. Like I've had enough, and I don't mean to sound, by no means do I want to sound like arrogant or anything like that, but I do want to say I had a lot of self-confidence. Like if I know I could do this, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna commit to that job or that contract. You know, it's interesting because by nature you may not know this about me, but by nature I'm a little bit of an introvert. I really am. I do have a bouts with anxiety sometimes being something that can overwhelm me, but I always do the exact opposite of the way that I'm feeling inside. So even at moments where I have a meeting and I have to sell, our product to a big contractor that's doing a job, but let's just say at LAX, a big project, right before I walk into their office or that office trailer, I'm nervous.
Yeah.
I'm not just confident. But when right as I open that door, I take a breath and I go, boom, it's showtime.
Yeah.
And right when it's showtime, I forget about everything else that I'm feeling inside and I project a sense of positivity and trust. Like, don't worry, I got you. I'm going to take care of you. Even if I have to do this, that, or the other, you're just rest assured it's going to work out good. I promise, and it works out. And then I kind of go back and I walk back and I say, "Whew, that was rough." Now I got to get to work, right? Now I got to
Yeah.
get to work because this person believes in me.
Right.
So that is something that I would have to say is a characteristic of mine. Is I exude a little bit more of a confidence and a comfort, but inside I might be a very nervous person.
Well, you know what? That just means that you're normal.
Yeah, thank you.
You're just normal.
You might. I mean, look, I don't say you're so comfortable in your own skin and all of that kind of stuff, but you know what I mean, right? We're all kind of on
Yeah.
that same boat.
No, I mean, we could get scared shitless. I know, God, it's been so many times where you're in front of a judge and you're like, fuck, oh my God, don't let me fuck this one up. And it's like, but,
Sure.
you put on put your cojones and and pray and know that you are fully protected and divinely led and everything will be well. Like,
Yeah.
what's the worst thing that can happen? Okay, yeah, it's a lot of money, but at the same time, it's like you still have your health, you still have your family, you still have a roof over your head. Like you have the essentials already planted, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. And there's a certain amount of ad-libbing that has to take place. I find that sometimes when I over prepare for something, I fall short
Yeah.
um, a lot of the times because I feel like I brought this along with me. I brought this along with me. I brought these people along with me, and at the end, it didn't work out. I'm more of an ad-libber
Uh-huh.
when it comes to certain things. Words will kind of come out at the right time, as opposed to you don't always have to feel like you've got everything in your suitcase and ready to go. Sometimes you gotta, like yourself, right? You're in court. You're doing something related to a court case or something legal, and some of it you just have to off the cuff. Like
Off the
how
cuff.
do I
Yeah.
rely on my own
Yeah.
senses, right?
Yeah.
Read
Yeah.
the
Like
room,
you
you
think
know.
of all the scenarios and you're like, okay, and then it's a fucking random scenario. You're like, okay. All right, let's go. Let's go.
I couldn't. That's tough. I have a couple of friends who are attorneys,
Yeah.
and they're like, they know how to handle their shit.
Oh
I
yeah,
get,
I
I
know.
get wrecked. It's like a tomato. It's like I gave it away. I'm
All
like,
right, yeah, I gave you the answer. Shit, damn it.
yeah,
Oh my God, this is such a wonderful conversation. I know that we're getting at the tail end, but I don't want to let you go without asking you for your tips on how an Amiga can handle her shit. Because, boy, you've been handling it in every degree.
What's interesting? I have a sister who, my youngest sister is a bit of an entrepreneur. She works for Disney as a graphic designer. She's been there for over 10 years now. But she also has a little side business where she does pop-ups where they sell hamburgers at breweries and liquor stores and festivals and all these things. They do smash burgers. And I look at my sister and I'm like, we're very similar, she and I, right? I
Yeah.
know she's nervous under her skin. I know it. Because when I try to talk to her when she's working, she'll be like, shut the fuck up, I'm trying to work here. She tells me like, don't bother me when I'm working. I'm like, all right,
Right.
I'm just trying to lend you a little support or whatever. But one of the things that I if I can give advice, it's no different than I would give any kind of advice, whether you're a Latina or a Latino. Um, in order to realize your dream, the components or the ingredients that go into that caldo, right, is
Right.
got to be a willingness to work really hard, right? Hours, almost like if you want to set your own hours, that kind of goes out the window. Initially, you got to be available.
Mhm.
For me, there has to be, especially the business that I had to create along with my business partner, we needed money, and it
Mm.
wasn't, we didn't have deep pockets. We had access to some accounts here and there, but not the deep pockets that were necessary. So we had to develop a business plan and present it to various banks until one particular bank believed in our business model and loaned us some money so that we can buy more equipment,
Yeah.
because we were growing at a rate that, even though we were successful and we had customers coming out of the woodworks, we didn't have enough money to buy the equipment that was needed to fuel this monster that was growing so quickly. So you have to find a financial source.
Mm.
Um, I said work hard, self confidence, even when you're nervous inside and you feel like, oh God, I can't do this. I don't know how I'm going to do this. Turn that off for a second and be confident and be bold and sell yourself. And then whatever you promise, deliver. Doesn't matter what it is, because it's hard. It's easy to lose a client, but it's hard to get them back if you lose them. So
Right.
those are, no matter, and that goes with any type of job that a Latino or a Latina want to do. But I loved seeing my sister, how hard she works and how confident she is on the outside, um, and she makes me very proud that she is a firm believer. I have another sister who works for NBC, and she's an analyst for them. So I've got two kick-ass Latina sisters that are making it happen out there. And I think it all came from what we saw my mom and my dad do, and the examples that they gave us early on about working really hard and not taking for granted their sacrifices just to come to this country. Because believe me, we were born here. They had to cross somehow, not know the language, find a place to sleep, and deal with discrimination, people saying things behind their back or in front of their faces. They had to deal with a lot more than we do, you know.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, I've had many people here on my podcast, and I remember a conversation that I had, which is with them, which was that our ancestors are on our shoulders, and who
Right,
are we not to be abundant and amazing? They started this, so it's up to us to
right,
continue, right?
right.
Yeah. Ah,
Absolutely. That's what we got to handle our shit, amiga.
exactly.
Be that pillar for our children
Yeah.
and for the next generation. I'm definitely, and this podcast, what you're doing for people, for Latinas in general and amigas, is you're out there serving the community so that not everything you say is always going to resonate, but there
Right.
will be that one little thing that somebody could take away from something that you said and create success from that. And what you're doing is incredible because you're selfless. You're thinking about others, and I commend you for that.
Oh, well, thank you so much, Rudy. Thank you so much. Is there anything else that I haven't asked that you would like the audience to know more about you?
Gosh, that's putting me on the spot. Let's see if something pops in my head. Um, I'll tell you something that I feel is important right now, that is interesting now that I've gone through everything that I've gone through, right? Sometimes you tell yourself, well, I just want to be done with work so that I can do all these other things, right? You have other goals set for yourself. I want to be financially independent because I want to travel, or because I want to start another business, or I want to invest in something different. Um, but at the end of the day, I still do have to give so much credit for the people that made it all possible, and that is my parents instilling, even with coscorrones sometimes, okay, because they were like, you gotta listen to us.
or in some cases, is the what is this, a
Oh,
belt, a
without this,
belting?
yeah. Oh, believe me, I got some of those too. Um, but now that things have transpired the way they have, I really am trying to give back to my company, but just in a different way. And one of it is to trust them, and understand that my way isn't the right way. It was just the way I did it. And the new ideas that I see our general manager, office manager, and so on, I sit back and I'm in awe by what they do, like how they work. So I have an openness to see where they're going to take this company next.
Yeah.
And so we have to be closed-minded with certain uh, basic principles of what makes our business model unique. But at the same time, as it changes and it goes through a metamorphosis, you have to be able to let some of it go, and have other people kind of run it. Hire people that are smarter in certain areas than you are.
Right.
And there's people right now that are way smarter than I am at this point.
Yeah.
They know a
No,
lot
I
more than.
mean, and you know what? And that's the thing, because we all have a finite time. It's the only
Right.
commodity that is not replaced, right?
Yeah.
Here today, gone tomorrow kind of thing. And so,
Yeah.
so it's important to have that foundation of those individuals that can carry the torch when you're not physically in your business. And then who knows, for future generations to come.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I'm so grateful. Thank you so much, Rudy. It's been a pleasure having you here. And I look forward to having another interview in maybe in a year. And we're
Hey,
going to touch base.
God willing, I'm still around. Probably be a little more gray than I am right now, but I'm here for you if you need me, amiga.
Oh, thank you so much. So, amigas out there, make sure you go and hire SoCal Industries for any of those events that you have, because I know that you also service small companies and big companies,
Absolutely. You
right?
call and ask for Rudy Lopez, you get a discount. How's that?
Ah, there you go, amigas. You heard it here.
All right.
Oh, shit, Rudy.
Rudy Lopez, and you'll get a discount.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Rudy, for being here on Amiga Handle Your Shit
My
podcast.
pleasure. Bye out there, huh? Thanks for hearing me out, guys. Take care.
Take care. You too.